往后把这个声音好，就设个三。
You definitely impressed. Well, I'm going to be there momentarily, not the vice presentation, but once you go to the event, you go to get fired. No,
I know. But I can't else. And I'm sitting. Yeah, I don't know who's supposed to. Yeah. Yeah. Very much to bring it to you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yep. Oh, and then we have my family. Anderson.
Right, yeah.
Want me to stop sharing or you want to? Yeah, you can. If you have any questions.
Okay, and the pace.
I thought sharing.
You ever?
I have that line.
Okay.
I can
Thank
take
you.
Sorry. Like, people talk, even with that stuff.
I don't even know.
I don't want to be in, that's why I'm asking.
This one? Oh, this one maybe security.
Okay. Can't see myself in this live stream, so that's good. Like, someone called, someone from the family called. Yeah, so the way I have it is that anytime someone speaks, it goes on to that. So when you're speaking, man, it's only. So we're sharing throughout the whole presentation. Does she have to share?
Well, it depends, like,
Can I not walk behind the legislators, do you think? Okay, sorry.
I went to test it out, so I could see if I. Yeah, so can you give it like one? Yeah.
Testing, testing, 1, 2. 1, 2, testing.
So if you right click on here.
Yep. Right click.
You just wanna unpin. Doesn't have maybe under your share button. There you go, side by side gallery.
Like that.
And that didn't change up there because you're,
So it will look like the presentation and then whoever's talking. So like, let's say a panelist will be down here.
well, the trick is you have to now share this to the video.
Oh.
And I don't know how that's being done, but that's room AV. I don't know how to do that, 'cause that's not.
Thank you.
You have it online?
No, no, no. C-O-M-E-Y. Yes.
Do you have it online? That's it. Like that.
Yes.
Yes, we got that.
So it won't look like this.
Well, I'm curious because it's not up there now. And so I don't know how your video, where that video feed is coming from, or how it's connected to this computer to tell you.
Yeah,
to do
I
it this
think
time.
she needs to share it where it looks like this.
Thank you.
She doesn't have that ability. You have,
Oh, it just showed.
yeah, but you have something called, you have a Zoom workspace, you have a Zoom room for this room. And she doesn't have that license on her laptop. It's not the same, exactly the same experience, unfortunately.
So do I need to share the?
You're fine. But if you, I don't know how you get this screen, like what you're doing to share one of these panels out to that screen. That's a Zoom room configuration, and that's up to your local AV person. And I don't know how that was done. But can you go side by side multi-speaker? See, I don't know, how do you usually change what appears up there?
Well, usually we don't do, I have yet to do one where I've had a presentation, so this is fairly new to me.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize if I
Okay,
seem
go to
like,
host tools.
yep.
And go to, let's see here, start new settings, to maps, waiting room. Somewhere this thing is outputting one of your screens and you have to be able to share. So if you go share,
Okay.
no, not the button, just the arrow.
Yeah,
Just put that arrow, allow. See, where are you getting that video from? I just don't know where you're getting the video, unfortunately. I don't know how that's configured here. But if she turns off sharing, that will go away. Honestly, that's probably the best way to go. So I'll let her know.
You're welcome to come on over. Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us. I am Jen Leeper, House Chair of the Education Committee, And I'm really grateful for this opportunity for our RESC Alliance to come and share with us all the really innovative work they're doing and the partnerships they provide to all of our districts. And one of the key opportunities, I think, is for so many of the new members in the General Assembly to also learn about the ways in which you're serving our communities, our children, and with the intersection specifically around special education and early childhood, that is a cross-cameral and bipartisan priority for this legislative session. And aren't we lucky in this committee to have that commitment from the leadership across all of the caucuses? So this is a really fantastic opportunity. And I believe the ranking members may be joining online. Give me one moment to see if they had any opening remarks they'd like to share. This won't be the last time for people to engage and ask questions. So I think with that, and in the interest of time, because there's no shortage of information you have for all of us, I'll hand it over. Chip, am I handing it over to you? Awesome. To do your presentation. Thank you guys again. And this will be recorded for members who either couldn't make it here in person today or members who are not on the committee but care a lot about this work and learning about how you serve our districts. So, all right. Thanks, Chip.
Good afternoon, legislators. Thank you very much for having us today and giving us the opportunity to share what the Regional Educational Service Centers in Connecticut do. My name is Chip Dumay, and on behalf of the 6 RESC directors, thank you very much. So today we hope to take a little bit of time to give an overview of how the RESCs came to be and what some of our responsibilities and obligations are. Talk a little bit about special education, early childhood, and how we help districts be innovative. We'll have a number of times during the presentation to answer questions. We brought an amazing team of people that represent the RESCs in just about every area. The short of it is that RESCs take risks on behalf of districts. And we'll talk a little bit later, glad to answer questions about what risks look like. But we do that by being agile, responsive, and accountable. So through collaboration and meeting district needs, right? 169 towns, the rest cover all of them. And just like everything else in Connecticut, every individual district has unique needs, and the state has needs that it needs each district to meet, and we balance that. Educational service agencies have been in the United States for almost a century. The most formal one, oldest formal one, is actually BOCES in New York. They provide educational support and programs across the entire state for every district. 41 out of our 50 states have ESAs, and if you're wondering why some don't because the states either have a structure or a size that doesn't warrant large-scale collaboration or regionalization. And there are more than 550 individual RESCs across the United States, and we're the 6th best. In 1965, the federal government decided that districts working together was important, and it provided some funding and incentive for that to happen through the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Connecticut shortly followed and set up interdistrict committees to encourage that type of work. In 1972, the state of Connecticut established the RESCs because they wanted freestanding organizations that would take this interdistrict committee work to a more formal stage so that we could help districts. The 6 RESCs in Connecticut are set up essentially along the borders of the traditional county system, and there are 6. So covering most of New Haven County is ACES with Dr. Tom Danahy. Covering most of Fairfield County is Cooperative Educational Services, and that's me. Covering most of Hartford County is CREC, and that's Dr. Greg Floria. East Con covers Windham and Tolland counties, and that's Eric Petrulis. Litchfield County in the northwest corner, that's Ed Advance with Mr. Jonathan Cost. And Middlesex and New London counties in the southeast corner of the state, and that's Learn with Miss Kate Erickson. 6 independent RESCs. And for a long time, they were independent and almost competitive in some of the work that they did. In the 1990s, the directors of the 6 RESCs realized that we could better serve the 550,000 students, the 50,000 educators, and the almost 200 school districts in Connecticut by working together as an alliance. So in the mid-90s, the individual RESCs formed the RESC Alliance. RESCs are regional education service agencies that are not for profit and fee for service. And we'll talk a little bit about the funding as we get going here. We all share the mission of providing quality, cost-effective education resources, programs, and services to Connecticut public schools. And when I say that, that's the broad mission. We still do a lot of work that's independent based on individual school districts. So each RESC does a lot of things the same and a lot of things very differently in order to best meet the needs of school districts. How are RESC governed? Just like a school district that has a board of education, individual members from each board of education of the towns that we represent send a member to serve on a representative council. So everything that happens in a RESC goes before a publicly elected official that represents their school district. And you notice that I put at the bottom of each one of these the actual Connecticut statute. Our authority and our accountability comes directly from Connecticut statute. Just like a school district, we have somebody who acts as the superintendent. We do run schools and programs. We all carry the 093 certification, and we do serve as executive directors in the same role as a superintendent for a board of education. Connecticut state statute gives us that authority to act on behalf of school districts across the state. Connecticut general statute also gives us the power to employ people to service school districts and provide programs, services, and activities that go before each one of our representative councils. Each year, RESCs submit a budget and projected revenue statement to the State Board of Education. A lot of the accountability instruments in Connecticut statute require us to report to the State Board of Education. And here's another one. Every year we submit an annual report, each RESC, that goes directly to the State Board of Education. Connecticut legislators have done a great job of incorporating pieces of legislation that encourage the use of RESCs. And so there is language in Connecticut general statute that says that RESCs should serve as providers of goods and services for local and regional boards of education. And legislature has encouraged that. RESCs also serve as essentially a state contract. So you can purchase services and goods through a RESC the same way that you would from state-approved contracts. This is a great opportunity for districts because it allows you to purchase directly. Connecticut legislation also specifically permits the Commissioner of Education to, quote, allocate funds to allow RESC to provide professional development services, technical assistance, and evaluation to local and regional boards of education. This one is a little bit sticky, and that's because the mechanism for having those contracts in place from the State Board of Education has changed over the years, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's difficult. Right now, it's a little bit easier for us with OEC and the state technical schools because we're allowed to contract directly with them, but not necessarily the State Board of Education, or the Department of Education. RESC funding primarily comes from local school districts, a large portion, the largest portion, in the forms of fees for service, magnet school tuition for those who have magnet schools, and special education tuition, and all of us have special education programs. It is supplemented by state grants, and those state grants generally reduce the burden on the towns. This is, I'll go back to the first slide, or one of the first slides. We're not for profit. We charge what it costs. And so what ends up happening is that if magnet school tuition or special ed tuition for a district is paid to a RESC, if the RESC gets some type of supplement, that really goes to offset what towns end up paying. RESCs also get funding from competitive state and federal grants. Well, isn't that an interesting topic for the day? Interest on investments, fee for service, and donations. We're not-for-profit and fee-for-service, and yet we still need to operate year-round. So RESCs are permitted to carry a reserve. And that reserve not only allows us to operate, but allows us, because school districts operate on a budget cycle, that might mean that if you planned for it today, you really couldn't spend it until a year from now because of the budget cycle. We have a little bit more flexibility and agility to help districts to put programs in or opportunities in place with a little bit more speed. So all of that is really about RESC taking risks on behalf of school districts. And at this point, I would like to give you the opportunity, if there's anything about the overview that you might have a question about. Again, we have a great team, and we'd be glad to answer a couple of questions. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Pertulis to talk about special education.
Thanks, Chip. Does anyone have any questions at this point? All right, then let's move on to Eric.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And we appreciate your time and your commitment to supporting education in our communities across the state of Connecticut. A couple of things I'm just going to not talk about today related to special education, because we could spend a lot of time talking about special education and what the RESCs do. So we're not going to highlight our specific special education self-contained programs. We all operate them. We serve many students across the state of Connecticut in those programs, and our districts rely on those services pretty heavily. So I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to talk about a number of other initiatives and programs that the RESC and the RESC Alliance do to support special education across the state of Connecticut. And I'll highlight these programs that are operated by individual RESCs, but you also note in the presentation that I'm not calling out the individual RESCs. As Chip spoke, we really do operate as a RESC Alliance, and that's an important distinction of how we operate and how we build programs and how we respond to the regional needs and the state needs as we move forward. So while these programs have developed in a direct response to the unique needs of the region that they serve, they are examples of how the RESC works within its communities. But it's important to emphasize that each of the Connecticut RESCs has the capacity to develop similar programs within the region as the need arises. And so it's an important distinction of how we go about building those programs. We look where the needs are, we look where the requests are, and we look at the ways that we can build those cost-effective solutions. So the strength of the RESC model lies in our ability to be both responsive and collaborative. Each RESC is deeply rooted in its region, working closely with districts, families, and community leaders to identify emerging needs and craft innovative solutions. At this time, we do not work in isolation. We work as a RESC Alliance. We collaborate across the regions, leveraging each other's expertise and resources. So if a need were to arise in my region and I didn't have the immediate capacity to solve that problem, I can reach out to my colleagues and to their staff and find those solutions. So in short, while I talk about these individual programs, I do want to emphasize that importance of us working as a RESC Alliance. When we think about special education services, we put them into four broad concepts, from shared services, operational support, expert consultation, and professional development. And I'll talk about some programs that fall into each of those categories. Under the shared services model, two programs we want to highlight. One is operated out of Mead Elementary School, This is referred to as an in-district collaborative. So that's a program that operates in Mead Elementary School, serving 15 districts in the surrounding towns. Students with disabilities are allowed to attend that program, and the goal within that program is to allow those students to integrate back into the general education classroom. Farmington Valley Diagnostic is also a district collaborative, but operated differently. This program is operated in a separate location. The member towns are the representative governance of that program, and they are able to buy slots for students to attend that program that they can attend for 45 days or a longer period of time, again, with the idea that those students would reemerge back to their home school as they are ready to. Also under the shared services model, a university pathways program. And so this is an opportunity engaging with the Connecticut Community College System and various state agencies supporting students with developmental disabilities to give them an opportunity to be on an inclusive in-college experience. Students are 17 to 22 with diverse needs, and they're able to engage in the academics, the social life, and all the aspects of a college experience. In addition to this, we also focus on our expert consultation. I'll say we often struggle with the word expert consultation. We don't always want to be perceived as we have the right answers, but again, we respond to the districts and to the regional needs that are brought forward. And we do have a strong staff who really do come with unique expertise and a long experience in the work that they do. One of the areas where our expertise has been tapped into was a program that was started by a RESC, and that was a community of practice. So we started with a small number of communities of practice, serving like individuals in their field, giving them an opportunity to work and collaborate together. The state became aware of this program through the SDE and the Bureau of Special Education and asked us to expand that. So over a 5-year period of time, we've expanded from 2 or 3 of those communities of practice to over 16, and currently serving over 3,000 professionals, which is representative of about 20% of the certified workforce in the state of Connecticut. Again, under the category of expert consultation, we have programs that offer autism services. So not just the school-based programs that we offer, but the opportunity to work with districts, to work with families, to work with educators, and individuals working with students on the spectrum to give them the skills and tools necessary to work with that population, whether that's in the district or within our own programs. A highlight again in our expert consultation is the guidelines for the board certified behavior analysts. So this is the first in the nation, and that was directly tasked with the RESC to develop this and combining the standards of the BCBAs as well as the work expectations to provide a document for the districts across the state of Connecticut with how to implement best their BCBAs. It includes evaluation materials, it includes job expectations, supervision requirements, and again, this is a first in the nation to have this kind of a document, so we're very proud of that. Again, another area where expert consultation came into play in response to Public Act 23-137 that required the development of transition programming. Our teams came together and developed that training. So that was in partnership again with Department of Developmental Services and our school districts to provide them with the training for paraeducators, educators, and any individuals working with students with intellectual disabilities. In addition to those trainings, we've also rolled out the life course training, which is a futures planning conference. Families really participate effectively in this process and enjoy the process as we talk about their young person and where we want them to be in the future of their life to design what their program needs to look like to get them to those goals. In addition, we continue to provide technical assistance to individuals and programs. And the RESC hosted the Connecticut Secondary Transition Symposium. In the category of operational support, I'm going to highlight one program here where we were able to, one of our RESCs was able to work with nurses in their region to give them the support that they need. Many of us operate with districts who are very small, and they may only have the one nurse in their K-8 district, or they may only have a couple of nurses. And so to provide them the necessary professional development opportunities requires specialized knowledge and expertise, and so we were able to address that. In the last category of professional development, I'm going to focus, really, this is an area where our RESC Alliance work has taken off. And so you'll see on this chart, a little bit of a confusing chart, we admit, but it does showcase really the work over time. So starting in 2018 and 19, we worked directly with the Bureau of Special Education. Some of that work was on those communities of practice, as well as developments of some of the guidelines, looking at specific learning disability and dyslexia. We started with that small quantity of work, and over time, you'll see that we've had a 400% increase in the amount of work that the Bureau of Special Education directly asks the rest to deliver on. And this is a comprehensive list of those areas. Each year, we find that that work continues to grow, and that they rely on the expertise that our staff bring to this work. Related to that, one of the State Board of Education initiatives was to roll out a new IEP system for our school systems. You've likely heard about that in various ways, but we were involved from the process in the beginning, trying to collect the information about what was needed and wanted out of the system, and the recognition that no system is going to be perfect, but we were instrumental in providing the training around the development of high-quality IEPs for students with disabilities. So during that period of time, we ran 540 trainings, training over 13,000 certified staff across the state of Connecticut. In response to that, there's still a lot of questions. How to use the system? How does it work? How do I implement information? How do I get information out of it? And so one of our reps came forward with the Bureau of Special Education and said, we have an idea to support that, and the development of the CT SEDS help desk that allowed us to respond to over 31,000 tickets and respond to the questions of individual districts from 274 districts and over 4,200 individuals. And again, in our training modules, in response to a legislative push for paraeducators to receive a minimum of 18 hours of training annually, recognizing that that's not an easy task to do. So our RESCs came together and created modules that allow across all of these different categories that you see on the screen. These are the existing training modules that we've developed, and we continue to add more modules that we're trying to offer at no cost to our districts. So we utilized some funds this year that were available for paraeducator training. We put together a couple of districts who had a small amount of money, and we're going to utilize that money to develop at least an additional 18 hours, if not 36 hours of additional paraeducator training. Part of the marketing on this is to make sure that it's available for educators, not just paraeducators, because oftentimes a new teacher to a district or a new educator in general, the world of special education is a bit overwhelming. So we want to make sure everybody has the same knowledge and expertise. So I'll pause there and ask if there's any questions that you have regarding how the RESC Alliance can better serve special education needs across Connecticut and in districts.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, Rep. Comey.
I was looking at your list here of the last graphic about the available training modules, and I'm just wondering so school districts, that's sort of a menu that they can pick from, and depending upon the needs of their
Correct.
the students. So what have you found? Is this new within the past year since that law, or what have you found?
This is the first year in which this has been
Okay.
launched. The modules themselves are also designed not to just be like sit on the screen and get the information. So there's content that comes afterwards, there's follow-ups, and we'll build in information that supervisors can then use to evaluate the implementation. So once they've received a training, right, we all kind of know best practices in training adults. Sitting and getting is not the best way to do that. So it needs to be an active process, and there needs to be follow through on that content as well.
Okay, so this is based on feedback from your districts as well, as far as because I know we kind of dropped it on, the training on them, and then just being able to get our paraprofessionals in the door to receive the training. Thank you.
Part of what you'll see too is what a benefit from our perspective is as RESCs, we all are practitioners as well, right? And some of my colleagues will talk about that. We're doing the same work. So we know where some of the faults are or where some of the lack of skills and knowledge will be based on our own experiences running schools and programs. Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll hand it over to Kate Erickson from Learning.
Can I ask one?
Sure.
Oh, Rep. Jenga. Did you have a question?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I know CREC manages several magnet schools. How many do you manage? Excuse me.
Yeah, so of the 6 RESCs, 5 of us all have magnet schools. Crack obviously having the most number of magnet schools. In Northeastern Connecticut, we operate 2. I'm not gonna get the number correct. Everybody, Learn has 4, ACES,
Okay,
and 2 at CES.
great. Thank you.
I want to ask just one question because often I think what happens in education is that if you work in education, you understand like all these terms, edu-speak, I think is that what we call it. And you referenced at the beginning that you all offer specialized programming regionally for students who are in self-contained classes.
Yes.
Could you just define that for anyone who might not know exactly what that means?
Great question. Thank you for that. So where we operate in those spaces is what we often refer to are low incidence disabilities. So students who have social, emotional, and behavioral challenges that may be on the autism spectrum, may have learning disabilities, may have a whole compendium of disabilities and require a more specialized setting to receive their education. So again, all that's designed through the planning and placement team process, and their IEP outlines those goals and objectives. And that team determines that that student requires a higher level of care to receive their education in an appropriate setting. So we offer those programs that serve those students. Ultimately, our goal is always to have students return back to their general education setting and to their public school setting. That works for a percentage of our kids, but not for all of our students, based on the level of needs and the way that we're able to provide very specialized programming. They're very staff-intensive programs, so our ratios of staff to students, is quite high because the needs are more intensive with our students.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to highlight that because as we're talking a lot about special education and the cost of special education this session, I think most districts recognize that the outplaced students who often need to be in self-contained classes because they just have really specific and unique needs are a cost driver, and the RESCs are partnering with us regionally to deliver these programs in many, many instances. Not every instance, of course, but you really are already there doing this work. And sometimes I think we as legislators either aren't aware, just or we forget about you guys. So I just really am grateful that you highlighted that. And I suspect, as we progress through this legislative session, we will be leaning on you guys to let us know how we can better use you and better partner with you. So I won't talk oh, sure.
Thank you. Can you just talk a little bit about your staffing levels when it comes to special education teachers and paraeducators?
Sure, it depends on the program. And so the specific needs, we can be right down to a 1-to-1 in some of our programs, more focused on students with high needs in the autism spectrum. They're very often in a 1-to-1 program. Sometimes those students are actually requiring a 2-to-1 staffing. Some of us have other programs that may have a model that's going to be somewhere between a ratio of 6 to 8 to 3 staff is kind of the standard that we operate with. All of us look at sort of standards around the development of programs and the quality of what we're supposed to deliver. So there are existing standards that we utilize to evaluate the effectiveness of our programs and making sure that our designs are kind of fitting with the national standards as well.
Just one additional question. Are there any specific challenges that you face when it comes to hiring special education teachers? And I mean, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
As brief as you can. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And obviously across the state, and I would say nationally, education is having a struggle finding people to come into the profession, special education even more so. And within our special education programs, sometimes that's made a little bit more challenging because the behaviors of some of our students are not always the easiest to deal with for an individual. And so sometimes people come into the profession and thinking what an education day is going to look like and what's going to mean to be a teacher. And then you deal with a student who doesn't exactly fit that mold. And so it can be pretty challenging. So the burnout and the turnover within that staffing is pretty high. What we are finding, I think I would say, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but certainly my experience has been growing from within having staff come into a program who've worked maybe as a paraeducator or in some other capacity, and they fall in love with the work that they do. They really do feel passionate about the work they get to do and the kids that they get to work with. So it's an opportunity to help them grow. So we have some programs we're going to talk about, and each of us is trying to grow within to find that capacity. I think that's one of our best ways to increase educators in general across the state.
Thank you very much.
Mm. Absolutely.
Oh.
Rep. Reddington Hughes?
Could you tell me, do you have any metrics of the savings, okay, that these towns are actually seeing as a result of the risk and not having to send the child, to a private facility outside of the district?
It's a good question to ask. It's a hard one to answer definitively because it's really so unique to each student. So, as we've been going through some cost structures at my agency, I heard from superintendents about what those costs are, and it really varies widely across the student. So you, again, also consider for the district perspective, you're not talking just the tuition, you're talking transportation to and from, and then any related services and any additional staffing that's required. So the individuality of that makes it hard to sort of categorize that cost savings in one unique way. And also depending on the type of disability and the level of need, they seem very expensive, but they are certainly cheaper than some of the other options that may be available. So it's the best way I can answer that question. And I'd certainly turn to many of my colleagues who have more to answer on that one, but okay.
I think we have like 2 more questions. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. I'm good.
And it doesn't have to only be you if you want to spread
They
the.
said it did though. They did. They said that.
Rep. Felipe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will just note, you've said that every question is an excellent question. So if you don't say mine is an excellent question, I will be offended.
Pressure's on. Better be a good one.
No, my question was going to be about some schools or some school districts around the state have been talking about creating additions to some of their schools to specifically have wings for special education, places where they can have students kind of be all in one place to limit the amount of staffing they have per classroom. Can you talk about some of the benefit and maybe the risks of having those built out in the state of Connecticut?
Might be my favorite question so far.
All right, now I know you're playing with me.
It really is a great question, considering, we're facing that, we're seeing that, we're hearing the conversations around special education, the increasing costs. And so this is an opportunity for districts to look at, I frame this in a different way. This is about the continuum of services that we provide students with disabilities. And it is an excellent option for districts to explore. I'll be frank and say not every district should do this. There are reasons why it's a good idea for some districts, and there's some reasons why it might not be a good idea for districts. That really needs to start with the needs assessment, which is a piece of the work that the RESCs can do. We can help districts determine, do you have the proper space? Do you have the proper staffing? Do you have the proper equipment and needs to provide those services? So just having maybe some money to create the program isn't really enough of a reason to do it. You have to really see this as the continuum that you're creating for all students so that they have that opportunity to receive their education in a general education setting, which is what the law says that we're supposed to be aiming towards, but recognize that some students need a more specialized and more cared program. And so again, and those things they have certain requirements that need to be in place. So it will create some savings. One of the best solutions that we've talked about is that if we do that regionally, right? So again, if a district has that capacity, has the staff, has the right environment to house a program like that, then doing something where we're bringing that in, like I talked about the MEAD program that ACES operates, that's exactly that model. So they've got 15 districts that are sending kids into that school. They're welcome into that community. They're able to access the gen ed setting as they're able to. That's really the model. And for us, one might think that this is competitiveness for our own existing programs. Absolutely not, right? Kids with needs need to be in the right programs. And so having a greater continuum is certainly something that we would support 100%.
I appreciate that answer. And I do have more questions, but you said it was great instead of excellent. So now I'm not even going to go. Just kidding. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Manapace?
This may go beyond a little bit when we have, but we mentioned this meeting. Frankly, how much of your funding is coming from the federal grants program and loans?
We had some of that just conversation this morning. Each of us has a different percentage. So it would have a significant impact for us. I mean, so my percentage right now is probably about 7%.
Okay.
Frankly, where we at in the conversation, we were talking yesterday, Head Start is one of the areas that I would be most impacted if federal funding were frozen as it was recommended. I would have about a month of funding to be able to operate that program before I'd have to close Head Start services.
Thank you. And that was going to be my follow-up about Head Start for that one. So that's all I have.
At ACES, our federal funding is about 4%.
I have one more question. Could you share sort of the timeline around how long it takes the RESCs to stand up either a new program or add a district to a program? And then also how a new program is funded?
I go ahead, Tom.
I'll start that. Hopefully I answer it appropriately. Pretty quickly. So this is what happens. This is a sample of what happened most recently, probably about 18 months ago. Superintendent called me. He's not in our catchment area. New Haven County's outside. He had a very needy young man who needed a lot of extra supports, and he didn't have a program. So he said, Tom, could you take this child and enroll them? And I said, well, I don't have a program. And then I thanked Kate Erickson for sending him my way. But within, we talked within ACES, and within, I guess, about 2 weeks or so, maybe it was 3 weeks, we started a program with this one child, hired a teacher, and got the support staff. And curiously enough, 18 months later, we have 3 classrooms with 14 students with similar disabilities. It's a high-functioning autism program. It's a school within a school. So the answer to your question is pretty quick. Sometimes it's faster than our folks may like because they want to do things well, but we also have to be mindful it's a market economy and superintendents have problems that they need fixed, and our job is to fix them. That's what a RESC is all about. Hopefully that answered your question.
That's great, thanks. And then funding, is it coming from the sending district?
Yes, it's a fee for service, right? So we charge tuition for that child.
Thank you for that. All right, I think you're off the hook for now. Thank you for answering all those questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kate Erickson from Learn. Thanks for having us today. And does this work? I think I froze. Okay, so I have the privilege of speaking to you today about early childhood education and really how our RESC Alliance does support early childhood education across our state. Many do not realize that RESC provide high quality coordinated services starting at birth, and that directly supports children, families, and school districts. Our work is deeply rooted in collaboration through the collaborations with the Office of Early Childhood, as well as the State Department of Education. And we can bring meaningful and effective programs to communities statewide. So our team of experienced and dedicated early childhood coordinators who are highly skilled in the field of education work in partnership with OEC and the State Department to deliver critical training and professional development opportunities. These coordinators serve as a resource for both public and private programs, helping implement the National Association for the Education of Young Children, also known as, I call it NIAC, but I think everyone says NACI, accreditation system, which is a rigorous standard for ensuring high quality early childhood education programming. This year alone, our teams have supported 240 programs across the state of Connecticut that directly impacts 5,000 children. This accomplishment underscores the strength of the RESC's infrastructure in providing talented, qualified coordinators who tirelessly work to enhance early childhood programs across the state. We are acutely aware of the limited window of opportunity that exists to positively influence the developmental trajectory of Connecticut's youngest citizens. Research consistently demonstrates that the early years are the most crucial for brain development, with 95% of the child's brain formed by the age of 5. The OEC relies on RESCs in collaboration with 18 other programs or providers to offer advanced degree level support to Connecticut's most vulnerable children and families. This initiative serves children with disabilities, developmental delays, and diagnoses such as autism. In 2023 alone, 11,151 free evaluations were completed for families concerned about their child's early development, with 13,810 children and families receiving 509,878 hours of support, either in their homes or in the child care settings. The Birth to Three programs play an invaluable role in addressing developmental challenges early when the brain is most malleable, and its services help prevent problems before they can have a long-term effect. Data shows that a robust birth to 8 system reduces long-term special education and remediation costs, making early childhood intervention not just a moral imperative, but a fiscal one as well. In addition to, there we go. Oops. Oh, I went too far. I apologize. Apologize. Who let me have this? Me and technology. Anyway, I will come back to. Okay, I went back too far. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. This is very typical. If you know anything about Kate Erickson, this is how I operate. Touch technology and I break it. All right, here we go. So in addition to our work with families and children, RESCs are also integral to the state's broader early childhood infrastructure. Several of our centers of our RESCs operate early Head Start or Head Start programs that we talked about earlier, and many of our magnet schools begin at the pre-K level. We personally run a pre-K of 460 little people. If you ever want to have a bad day, come hang out with our people. It's a good time. Collectively, the RESCs serve over 2,000 early learners in our federal and public school programs. Our direct involvement in these programs give us real-world insight into the challenges affecting early childhood. Pairing our practice with our talented team, we are able to contribute to systemic and sustainable solutions on how to improve the overall early childhood landscape. I'd also like to take a moment to highlight the adaptability of the RESC Alliance system. During COVID-19, when the state launched the Governor's Emergency Education Relief or GEAR program, our early childhood coordinators worked quickly to distribute thousands of iPads to child care programs and families. Beyond the distribution, our team designed and delivered targeted training to families across Connecticut. Additionally, we created the GEAR, the GEAR Learning Hub website, which houses training resources for teachers and families to access at any time. This is just one example of how RESC Alliance can quickly and effectively respond to the ever-changing needs of the state's early childhood system. We had over 11,000 visits on that website just in the last year. In closing, the RESC Alliance Early Childhood Team demonstrates on a daily basis their commitment to collaboration with the state, local, and municipal agencies to address the diverse needs of Connecticut's children and families. As legislators, you can be assured that we are dedicated to serving each child in Connecticut. The RESC Alliance is an indispensable partner to the strategic tool in helping the state achieve its goal of implementing our Blue Ribbon Child Care Plan. And we remain steadfast in our mission to ensure all children in Connecticut receive the best possible start in life. Thanks for your time. Any questions on early childhood?
Representative Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kate, for that presentation, and thank all of you for being here today. I think you're all doing great things. I have to say, full disclosure, I'm slightly partial because I teach in a crack magnet school.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand a few things about how the rest work. My question is, it was already been mentioned today how there's staffing shortages in special education, there's staffing shortages in general education, and we've heard on the Education Committee over the last few years exactly how tough it is to staff these early childhood centers. So what's being done through the RESCs? What are your takes on that, and how we are going to be able to staff those facilities? What kind of trouble are you having staffing them?
Yeah, I'm gonna let the people who run so for our pre-K programs, we are certified pre-K teachers, so we're able to find that particular subset. But the Head Start and I'll let you talk, Eric, on that one.
Yeah, so one of the ways that we're trying to do that is through kind of that grow your own model. So giving people the opportunity who are working in the field of childcare or have an interest in it. So partnering with adult ed programming as well as to providing the in and on the job training. The idea that they can get to the CDA, and I'm never going to remember what it's, this Child Development Associates. And so they can get to that certification. The idea is that that would allow them to create a pathway towards a better paying job. So again, it's an area where we're really trying to create this opportunity from within. Many of our families have an interest in getting the job and working in that field. So it's a great place for us to start, but it is still a challenge to find the staffing. I don't know if others have more they would add, or if Diane would add anything.
I just think it's an opportunity to really lift up the field because it is a high need field and people won't be able to go to work if they're not able to have childcare. So childcare is education. I think often it's thought of as less than, and in reality, yeah.
I'm gonna.
Sure, thank you. So early childhood actually is quality education, whether you're in a public school or a community program, but it's childcare. We care for kids. And when we do that, we need to think about families. We need to think about children. We need to think about how we meet all of their needs as well as staffing needs. Right now, the early childhood workforce is really in a struggle to attract and retain and quite frankly, afford to pay an equitable wage. So that's really our struggle right now. The Blue Ribbon Panel outlines some opportunities there. There's opportunities through apprenticeships right now. There's also opportunities to raise awareness about the need for people to go to work because otherwise people won't be able to serve the economy in the state of Connecticut. So that's my pitch.
I would say in addition to that, there's also issues of organizational safety. How safe is the work environment in that organization? As well as many folks ask for what's the professional learning opportunities for employees. So what package can we put together? And I would say good pay and good benefits overall makes for an attractive workplace.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. So thank you. And thank you
If
for
you
your,
want me to say something to,
if you don't mind. Thank you.
I just also want to thank Kate, you for explicitly saying that investments in early childhood are the pathway for prevention for special education services down the road. And so they really are, of course, like you said, the right thing to do for children and human development, but also fiscally very responsibly invested dollars because they save us a lot on the back end. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think sometimes we lose track of that piece and that also, and I'm so sorry I didn't get your name, but I'm really grateful for you sharing and how it's enabling workers back into the workforce. So there is a multiple benefit to the economy. So I think that's just really central as we continue to talk about how important it is to invest in early childhood. It's not just playing with blocks and coloring and nap time like I think people think of it as, but it's like the biggest bang for our buck we can invest. So with no further ado, in case it wasn't clear where I stand, Dr. Florio, so nice to see you. 2 days in a row.
Yes. So for those of you keeping score, you're now in the second half of the team. And just so you know, the first half had about 80% of the slides. So we'll keep moving here. We want to focus now on innovation that comes with the risks. We've used the term agile. We've talked about our willingness to take risks. I will tell you that one of the periods of time where I was most proud to be an executive director of a RESC goes back to March of 2020. Just want to give you a sampling of in that 2-week period when we thought we were going to be out of school for 10 days and then back, what was asked of the RESCs. As it became clear that teachers needed resources to move to virtual learning, the State Department of Education asked the RESC Alliance to put together what in effect became SDE resource pages in almost every curricular area that teachers could tap into and use. There was concerns about how students were going to get fed, who needed their meals, working regionally with the RESCs to make sure that those things were taken care of. The state had money that it needed to be able to get to daycare centers to keep them open for essential workers. And the quickest way and the most efficient way to do that was to use the RESCs. So when we talk about innovation, creativity, flexibility, there is no better group in education to move that kind of work forward. And I especially think now, as we've talked a lot about with the potential for special education, there's no better group to work with the districts in the state to find those efficiencies that are desperately needed going forward. So I'm just going to share a couple of the innovative programs. I don't even get a question slide. You just have to pass it on. Don't trust me. But I do want to talk about some of the innovation, and the two remaining colleagues will share a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in these areas around educator workforce development, choice programs, disconnected youth, and artificial intelligence. One program that as a RESC Alliance we take great pride in is our Connecticut Teacher Residency Program. It is a program that is a perfect example of how an idea at one RESC can quickly become, in a very short period of time, a statewide program. There was a defined need for schools where students were 75, 80% students of color and could go through most of their school experience and never see a teacher in the classroom that looked like them. And we decided that a risk needed to be taken. And in this case, a risk was an investment into a program that could start changing that. And the TRP program came into existence about 5 years ago. And within the first year, the other RESCs came on board. And in a very short period of time, it became a statewide program where we have seen over 130 teachers go through the program, gain their certification. These are individuals who have a bachelor's degree, who are given an opportunity to advance their career into a certified position and are successfully teaching in classrooms. In that short period of time, we also realized that there were some other needs that had to be addressed, especially the shortage of special educators in the state. And now the teacher residency program, which originally started as an elementary focused program, also offers certification in special education. And it offers, will soon offer certification in middle school math. So again, this is a program that was a kernel of an idea that generated very quickly and within a very short period of time is now working across the state with over 30 school districts participating in the program going forward. And I know Representative Felipe had to leave. He has been a big champion for us for this program and supporting it, and I always appreciate his efforts in that regard. The other thing I just want to mention, and it was brought up earlier, is that we're very involved in school choice. Connecticut has an outstanding program of public school choice options for families, not just here in the Hartford area, but across the state. And in order for those schools to be successful, they have to be innovative. They have to work very hard to provide an opportunity that families are looking for that they might not find in their local public school. I've always felt that it's our obligation to give people a choice, and the choice should be indifferent. The choice should be what's best for the child, not competing against one another. So providing high quality, innovative schools for over 13,000 students across the state, as we said, 27 magnet schools. We also have the pleasure of managing the Open Choice Program for the state of Connecticut. That is not just a Hartford area program, that is in other regions of the state of Connecticut. As you can see, there's over 47 school districts that participate in that program. As I said, they didn't give me a slide to let you ask questions, so I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Tom Danahy.
Greg, we're gonna have one question. Representative Reddington Hughes.
It won't be a tough one. I'm just, the question has to do with the program that trains teachers.
Mhm.
Is there any emphasis on training, teachers that have disabilities? Clear, like physical disabilities, so that it would be something that the children in these classes, would see that, these, there are aspirations for them as well.
It's an open application process and we
Yeah.
do a lot of the recruiting. So I
Yeah.
think that
I just
certainly
didn't
would be
know
a
if that was
potential
ever an
candidate.
emphasis.
We also work within our HR departments to provide the accommodations that any employee would need to function appropriately and effectively.
I will just share with you, and this is complete. One of our recent CREC Teachers of the Year was a student at the Soundbridge program, which was a CREC program for students who are deaf and hard of hearing. And he went through that program and is now teaching in that program and was ultimately a CREC Teacher of the Year. So we do look for those models.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you for a couple minutes about programs we have for disconnected youth. So as you may know from the Dalio report in 2023, there are 119,000 students out there who are disconnected. They live in every community, from the smallest town to the largest urban city we have. The causes for the disconnection may be related to poverty, trauma, and racism. So the next few slides show some of the things we put in play to counteract what's happening there. And you can see on the right hand of this slide there, we have the LEAP program, which I'll talk about in a minute. The Disability Summit, you're all invited to that coming up next week. Impact Academy, Trauma Coordination, University Pathways Program, College and Career Accelerated Program, and the Regions Program for Adjudicated Youth. In the LEAP program, right after COVID hit, in the first round of funding that was available, there was monies left over. So the governor was interested in making sure that students were attending, and we developed the LEAP program. So this is in 25 different districts throughout Connecticut, and it's really a home visitation model where a team of teachers, teachers support staff, somebody that the student might know will go and make home visits to bring those kids back to class and re-engage them. And it's really about building relationships and trust. It's had wonderful results, and it's going on. There have been 3,450 people trained, 30,000 students are back in school, 92% of the districts that participate realize increases in attendance, and it's in 25 districts. It's just been a wonderful model of that work. The Disability Summit is run, it's a partnership, and a lot of our work is based on partnerships between Learn and Mohegan Sun. So it's happening February 8th, and some of the classes I think I should attend, my wife would definitely recommend me to attend, especially on executive functioning. But it's really an opportunity to show a lot of opportunities for families out there, for students with special needs or in 504 plans, such as helping parents navigate the transition to secondary schools, and a lot of other programs based on play and so forth, that it's kind of like something for everything. But it's a great example of a partnership with Mohegan Sun and with Learn. So you're invited to participate in that on February 8th. In addition to that, as you may know and see the results of, large comprehensive high schools aren't effective with all kids out there. So an example of a program, Impact Academy, is a CREC program that started in 2017, and it's been really successful in kind of putting different ideas together. Academic performance is one of them, but it's also social emotional learning and opportunities for work development programs. For students out there, they've had 90 graduates since 2017, and enrollment has grown, and it's really using project-based learning opportunities to develop the students' experience and engage them and actually have them come to school more often. So that's been a sample of success for disconnected youth. Another sample is a Train the Trainer program, Uplift, around trauma-informed instruction and resilience focus and individual utilizing program, and we've had many, many staff members from a variety of different areas in education participate in that. 93% of the folks who have participated have found the work to be relevant, and 89% say that they've used some of the strategies they've learned from that program in their actual instruction or work with students. And I'll call up my colleague, Jonathan Costa. Any questions before Jonathan gets here?
Does anyone? I have just one.
Sure.
The impact program, I think disconnected youth is another really big focus for us and has been for a couple of years, and there's no silver bullet, but that's been an impactful, no pun intended, program. Does that program exist for middle school students, or is it specifically for high school students?
So the genesis of that program was that we were finding students who were undercredited, over age, were thinking of leaving the magnet schools and going back to their local district. But what we also realized is when they did that, they were probably just going to drop out. And we couldn't let that happen. So we decided to create the Impact Academy, which is doing high school a little differently, very different focus to keep them engaged. And it has worked very well. And I have to say, you know, initially it was difficult because the State Department had very rigid rules about if you apply for a school through the lottery, that's where you need to go. But that we worked with them to create the flexibility to let the students, in many cases, finish their education in the Impact Academy or get back to a point where they could go back to the magnet school they were attending.
We also have programs, Regions is a partnership program for adjudicated youth. So this would be after the fact if students ran into issues with the law and had to be remanded for incarceration, but we also run programs for that. But hopefully we avoid that with the strategies we put in play beforehand.
Thank you for that. I know I've been thinking a lot about middle schoolers because I think we're losing kids before we think we are. But thank you for that. And also just want to recognize you guys are offering programs for every type of kid, right? And kids that often are otherwise forgotten or left to fail out of the system. So just want to recognize.
We are the statewide problem solvers. So give us your problems and we'll work something out. Maybe not tomorrow, but we can get it done.
I love that. Thank you. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. Knowing I was going to follow Tom, I asked Deb if I could sit on a pillow so you wouldn't be, be shocked. And in a little bit of irony, I'm here to be the big finisher. So just going to talk a little bit more about how we respond when needs arrive. So one of the things that we do well is work together with our districts to help leverage regional efficiencies when appropriate. I know for some of us, we have very small districts. I have 5 districts in my service region with less than 100 kids. And when you're at that scale, it's very hard to have a full-time HR director, a full-time tech director. So many of us provide back office or IT support to our districts. We hire the folks, we send them out for as much time as they need to service those small districts. So we create economies of scale around needed services in districts. We do the same thing for special ed transportation. This is a huge cost driver in special education. We created and have created regional collaboratives for transportation. So you have 2 or 3 proximate districts who need to send children to the same outplacement program. Putting them in the same van can dramatically decrease the cost of transportation in those programs. This has worked so well that we've actually built a software program to help us automate routes to leverage those efficiencies to the highest degree possible. All of us at some level participate in regional purchasing collaboratives. So software, technology, materials, just about anything where economy of scale for purchasing power helps reduce costs to districts is something that we have organized and run. We have, in the last 5 years, we joined together at Advance with our colleagues at CES to co-purchase a training facility that's pretty much right on the border of our two service regions so that we can provide specialized professional learning for teachers and kids at a regionally shared site. So we are always looking for opportunities to collaborate, to work together, to either provide better services or services at a lower cost. Another example of innovation based on need, we facilitated the last strategic plan for the State Board of Education in the summer of 2023. And two of the four goals set by the State Board related to improving opportunities for students to explore careers prior to leaving high school, and also opportunities to get dual enrollment credit prior to leaving high school. So we've created the College and Career Accelerator Program, where we take full-time drivers who drive kids in the morning and the afternoon but have nothing to do in the middle of the day to transport kids from participating districts to sites that can provide specialized training and advanced manufacturing in early childhood education, to get students interested in careers and allow them to take college courses while being in their current high school program. So these kids get those opportunities, but they don't have to leave their district. They can go home and play on their soccer team or go and be in the play. And this program currently is in its first year of existence, 8 districts participating. If those kids can finish that 4-year program, just with those 70 students, they will accumulate $633,000 in college credits at no expense to them because of our partnership with the community college system in the state of Connecticut. And this is having a direct impact on the goals set by the State Board of Education. The State Department of Ed is, primarily a regulatory and supervisory agency. They're deliberate, they're careful, as they should be. That creates some challenges when it comes to responding quickly to current issues. And there's no better example of this than trying to help districts respond in a positive way to the wave of tools, opportunities, challenges, and dangers presented by artificial intelligence. And in just 2 years' time, since AI became public-facing in late 2022, the RESC Alliance has provided training to over 10,000 educators in Connecticut on instructional practices, challenges, strategies, customized curriculum bots. It goes on, on and on. We have a community of practice that is statewide that has 210 educators in Connecticut participating on a monthly basis. We have a student-facing AI tutor in 15 districts. This is one of only 3 privacy compliant student-facing AI tools in Connecticut. We partnered with Southern Connecticut State University to create a micro-credential for educators. We've had 2 cohorts sell out. The third one is about to start. So 188 educators in Connecticut have a micro-credential in AI-supported teaching and learning. We have a weekly podcast, K-12 Education in AI, that has about 1,000 listeners from across not only Connecticut, but our country and abroad as well. And to date, we have directly supported 51 different districts, either with specialized training, AI team planning, strategic planning around the implementation of artificial intelligence in the K-12 setting. And if you paid attention to the news this week and you heard about DeepSeek, this is how fast things can change. And when things change that quickly, schools, educators, and students need help. They need guidance, they need support, and we are uniquely arranged to do that quickly, effectively, efficiently, and with a very high degree of quality, because we are all practitioners and we understand what it means to be in a class with kids who have grown up in an age of AI And how does that challenge how we think about goals, measures, and practices for students in our world? Any other questions about innovation?
Thank you so much for that. Does anyone have a question? Rep Menapace?
On the, sorry, I'm Brett Menapace. I'm also a teacher, and frankly, like AI has become this huge thing
Yes.
for all of us. And I would say that it's been a bit of whiplash, because I know a year ago they were telling us like, this is what you do to make sure that students absolutely aren't using it. And then this year I just had a PD on this is how you should best be using it.
Yep.
So it's a bit, but I guess in the, how much of a priority like are you all making this? Because to me, it is like I said, that turnaround was very striking for me to like view of like, don't ever use this, don't allow it to, oh, you should use every single part. This is every single thing you should be doing.
Yes. Well, all of us are different, but we all have this on our radar screen. In our agency, we've essentially devoted everything we have to trying to think through what this might look like. And I think at some level, all of my colleagues are doing the same. And, the biggest challenge, I think, long-term is we always first think about how these tools are going to impact the way we currently do things. So the first wave is almost always a retrofit, right? How do we use these tools to do what we're doing better, faster, or different? The challenge is it never stops there. And I don't think there's any question that ultimately this is going to change the way we think about what kids need to learn, how they need to learn it, and how we measure our success in delivering it, and how we manage the transition from the model we have to the model we will need is going to be a very challenging thing indeed for practitioners at the classroom level, but for policymakers, because the pace of change is mind-boggling. And so we're all working at it in different ways, but this is one of those things that is outstripping the bureaucracy, the legislative processes' ability to keep up. Because, we just banned TikTok because it's run by China. Tuesday, the fastest downloaded app in the Apple App Store was a Chinese large language model, which by any measure has 10 times the data exposure that TikTok ever had. When will that get banned? So the things are happening so quick. We need to have organizations that can respond quickly to those challenges and help support educators because they get hit with it right away. Kids in your schools and our schools are using DeepSeek right now. I guarantee it. And what are we going to do about it? We need to be able to respond. Kate, did you have something? Okay.
Rep Comey?
Thank you. I want to, I really just have a comment, and it involves, I represent Branford. And as we were, watching the superintendent's budget address, in our increased costs that we're expecting are, double, triple what they were in the past several years. And one of the things that they really emphasized was the ability to regionalize some of our travel, our transportation
Sure.
needs. And, not only is, I just want to note that that is like really a priority, because transportation is exceptionally expensive to our districts, and anything that we can do or that you guys can do to make that a little bit easier on the taxpayers of our town is appreciated. And it's also great for the environment.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as it turns out, the software program that I mentioned for routing also allows us to track about 20 different cost parameters on every run every day. So we can predict and track almost to the penny what any route costs any day. And it's almost like honesty in car sales, right? We promise you a 10% margin, and that's it. We need to charge enough to keep our fleet running and to employ the best people we have, but we will never charge you more than that. And we can show you how we know what it costs. So we are working hard to develop structures that are transparent, efficient, help get kids where they need to be in the most efficient time manner and the most effective cost manner, so districts can do what they need to do to help their students without destroying their budget on a yearly basis.
And wasting time, I mean, you
Right,
know,
and wasting time.
valuable time.
Exactly.
That could be spent in the classroom learning.
Exactly.
Thanks,
So-
Kami. Can I ask a question?
Sure,
about that?
absolutely.
How can we help you scale up that technology? How could we make that available to all our districts? I don't know about my colleagues, but I suspect we've all been sitting in our CABE
Yes.
legislative breakfast lately
Yeah.
and hearing from our districts about exactly these issues and wanting this type of service because
Sure.
they recognize
Yeah.
this is like a last opportunity, but they didn't really have the technology to do exactly what you're describing.
Sure. Well, we recognize from our own management practice that this software, which was developed, by the way, by an employee who was simply hired originally to be a clerk, but he had a deep understanding of how algorithms and algebra work and built this spreadsheet through Google to do all of what I just described. But it got so challenging to run it through Google that we made an investment to have it built as a web-based app. And we took on that expense because we thought it would help us, but we have realized that if everybody had it, it could really help them too. So we're about 2/3 of the way through the development of the software. It will be ready in the next couple of months, and I'd be glad to show and demonstrate to anyone what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how it could be scaled up to anyone who wanted to use it to help maximize their transportation efficiency in either in their own district or as a regional collaborative.
That's very exciting. So I'll look forward to connecting more about that
Excellent.
as you get the last third sort of up and running.
Sure.
I was worried we were going to be short on time, so I sort of have two last things, unless anyone else had a question. A lot of the information you shared with us was because it was the information I asked you guys to share. And I know you do a lot more than just this. And I know that every year it's a struggle to do these things for our community because you're at the whim of what we appropriate for you in many cases. I know that CREC and in the Chef District has particular challenges, not just legislatively, but also because of what was directed via the judicial branch. So I want to give you the opportunity to also share with us anything you feel like you didn't have the chance to yet. And then also, I see you're excited to do that. I like to ask you what you wish we knew about students and learning and meeting kids' needs as we continue this really important work, especially now that we have everybody's eyes on the work of education this session. So those I would love to end with.
Go ahead.
That's a great question. Thank you for giving us opportunity to continue. So first, I just want you to understand is we haven't even finished talking about all the things that we do. So that was what's hard about this presentation is there's more. And one of the things that we understand, and someone mentioned the fact that we serve what we sometimes call marginalized students or students who need more services. The one group of learners that we haven't talked about at all, which is the fastest group of learners in the state, are lingual learners. And these gifted young people come with a language, and now they're going to have two languages. One, we have the facilities and the abilities to go to teachers and go into your classroom and talk to you about, okay, well, what does that mean for you tomorrow in your classroom? classroom, but on another level, we understand systems. So we can't just help one teacher at a time. We have to talk to principals about what are the ways in which you create a school that creates belonging. And I know that there's a word out here called equity that people are afraid of, but I will tell you right now, equity is about giving kids what they need. And that has always been an educational term, and it is not a political term. And I am so frustrated that that has been weaponized against us, because that is not the purpose of that word. And so what I will tell you about multilinguals is we need to understand that that is a future. Why isn't my child multilingual? I'm actually embarrassed that they're not, because this global world needs multilingual kids. And so what I will say is that every part of that system needs to be fixed. And our teams, again, because we run schools with multilingual students and we have educators who are bilingual, dual enrollment student, or not dual enrollment, but dual immersion teachers, we understand the power of this superpower that we're creating. So all I will say is that there's so much more that we do that we haven't even begun to talk to you about, but because we understand the educational system, we're not trying to help one teacher at a time. We are trying to help the whole system. And when you bring us in, we don't have the solutions, but we have really, really smart people that really care about our children and want to be part of your solutions. And so if you just invite us into the room, I think we can think about different solutions that we haven't talked about yet.
The one resource that rests don't lack is a passion to help.
I love that. And I appreciate that passion. And we're talking about children and their lives. And so I really appreciate that. And I also want to say, like, this isn't the end of our conversation. I'm hoping today is the beginning. And I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to engage with a number of you many times. But for all of us, and especially for members to get to know their risk, I think is really important. I want to just make sure I recognize our ranking member, Representative Zupkis, and give her an opportunity to say something. But I saw, Tom, you also wanted to respond. Go ahead, Rep. Zupkis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my apologies, I was sitting in the special ed meeting for a little while. So with your passion, I love it. And we all have that for our kids. I would hope that we all have that for our kids. And so right now, I know we don't have the time, but two things I would love your help, and I think it would help all of us, is special ed, how to get the cost down, what can we do to service those kids? That's a huge focus. So I love your input on that. And also, I would appreciate your input on looking at our schools. We know that a lot of schools aren't where they should be, and there's a disservice being to those kids, quite honestly. And I would like to know how to help them. What can we do in this committee to help our children who really are having a disservice? And I know that's a big pie or a big puzzle, and there are lots of pieces to that, and it's not easy. But keeping in mind, finances and money, right? And I do believe we are going to be spending money on special education. There's money that needs to be spent, but what I said to them in the special education is, all I'm hearing is more and more cost. And when do we bring that cost down? What's the line to bring the cost down? Because that's what we really need to do. So I know that's a big ask, but I would appreciate, and I do apologize, maybe you addressed these things when I wasn't here for the meeting, but I would really appreciate any input that y'all have to that. So thank you.
I just want to make a plug for ACES, and this goes to Representative Comey's question and to Representative Zupkis. So at ACES, we have regional specialized transportation. Give us a call, contact me by email, and we can get that going. And we wanted to invite everybody here to a luncheon we have hosted over by the cafeteria.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Rep. Zupkis. And was there any closing remarks? Because I did also ask, besides our multilingual learners, if there was something, and Jonathan, I know I've asked you this twice, and I wanted to give you an opportunity because we talked about disconnected youth. And I think generally as a system, not reflective of what you are all doing as real education innovators, we've been doing the same thing for a really long time in education. And I think we keep seeing year over year, it's really not moving the needle in the direction we want to be moving the needle for our children. So if you're willing to share what you think we should know about kids and learning.
Well, I believe that over the last 30 years, the product that we have assumed that students need for their life, learning, and work beyond school is less and less aligned with what they think they need. And I believe that as long as that gap exists and continues to grow, that whatever we try to do to Band-Aid disaffected youth will just be creating more of them. You know, there will always be kids who do what we ask them to do because they come from homes where that's important, and they will take it and they'll do it, and they will be successful because they feel like they have to. Unfortunately, the number of those students that we serve every day is reduced every year over year. And I do think systemically, long term, we need to really rethink how we define what the skills and knowledge needed for success in life, learning, and work beyond school are, and to teach them in a way that speaks to and engages a youth that grew up in a world different from the one that we grew up in. And I know that my colleagues share that urgency, and we can throw a lot of resources at trying to catch kids after they fall. The more we can do to keep them from falling, the better off we will all be. So whether that is encouraging students to explore careers while they're still in high school, giving them opportunities to explore what they are interested in the context of learning. So if we want all students to be good writers, let them write about what they're interested in. If we want them to be good readers, let them read what they're interested in. So I think that we have polished this stone and are committed to continue to polish it, but it might be the wrong stone. So how do we get the space we need to sort of peek around the corner and rethink this enterprise so that more and more students want to be with us, want to do what we offer, and can go and adapt and relearn in a world that we know is going to change very rapidly once they leave our care.
I think that's a really nice way to end this. I want to make sure, though, if anybody else had any closing remarks. Representative Brown, did you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity, and I don't want to have to be the one to give the last remarks, so please go after me. As a classroom teacher, what you just spoke to really struck a chord, because the number one thing that we must do in the classroom is find that relevance to a child, to a student's life. Otherwise, they'll make zero connection to that learning, and that information is for naught. So we have, as districts, as RESCs, as education leaders, have to figure out a way to make learning accessible but relevant. Because without that relevance, there's no connection, and we're going to lose more students than we win over. So thank you for speaking to that and the importance of relevance in learning. There's not much more that's more important. So thank you.
Thanks, Representative Brown. 1:30 on the dot.
On the
I'm
dot.
shocked.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I know you are incredibly busy people, and you gave up a lot of time to share it with us. And I'm grateful. And I think everybody here is grateful. And I know I will be sharing this recording with the full committee and honestly with my community, because I think it's important that everybody understands both what you do, but also this sort of lens and thinking about how our students are learning and being prepared to live meaningful and productive lives. Like that's the goal. That's the work. So I look forward to continuing to connect at the luncheon, and I hope everybody will join. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for your time. We know you are extraordinarily busy, and we appreciate your efforts and time today.
Thank you.